Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Iyori Folare. Well, it's a Friday, last program for the week, and our guest this morning is Senator Ajibola Bashiru. Senator Bashiru is the senator representing Osun Central District, and he's also the official spokesman of the Nigerian Senate. Senator Ajibola Bashiru, a fine morning to you, sir.
Yeah, good morning, Uncle Yori. How are you doing?
Very well, sir. Thank you very much for making time for us. Our viewers will soon see your face, but for the moment they heard you loud and clear, so we are in contact, and the other part of it will soon be known. There, everything, the whole package is now complete. We can see and hear you now. So, as I was saying, thank you very much. We are in different times. This hasn't happened before, but it is happening now. The election is just, less than 3 weeks away, and we're still in the middle of a currency change that is causing all sorts of anxieties around the country. And, the central bank, I beg your pardon, the Supreme Court has has entered into the mix. So I wanted to ask from you, what is your sense, your understanding of the official position? Because as you know, the Supreme Court, and this is excellent because you're a former Attorney General of your state, so these matters are you're very conversant with these matters. Just where exactly do we stand now in terms of whether or not we can continue to spend the old Naira?
I think Nigeria is in, unfortunately, a very precarious situation. There is a difference between whether you have an order of court and whether that order of court is capable of being supervised or being rendered onerous by the actions of those who are supposed to implement, the order. My understanding is that the Supreme Court granted an interim order staying action on taking the old notes out of circulation. But unfortunately, even before that order was granted, the CBN had made a representation to Nigerian people that the new note will not be acceptable after 31st of January. By 31st of January, I will say that more than 99.9% of the old notes in circulation have been returned to the CBN. And the CBN, as people were depositing those money, were refusing to give out the new notes, the old notes out. They were also refusing to give the new notes out. So even when the CBN gave an extension till February 10, practically that extension is actually meaningless because the bulk of the old notes are largely out of circulation. Then when the Supreme Court also gave its order, the order is just in limbo because the CBN is not giving out the old notes. The only old notes they are giving out, which is not the design notes, that is the 20 Naira and the 50 Naira notes. Because I made an inquiry in my senatorial district here in Osun, and I discovered that the CBN is not giving out new notes to the banks. They are asking them to come and pick up old 50 Naira notes and 20 Naira notes. And you could just imagine if you need to withdraw 200,000 Naira and they have to give you in 20 Naira or 50 Naira denomination. I will say, and it's rather unfortunate that we put, and I say this word advisedly, incompetent people, unpatriotic people at the ends of our financial sector in Nigeria. Because I believe that in coming out with a circular, even on what they call a cashless economy, the initial proposition was that every Nigerian would be entitled as individual to take 100,000 per week. Of course, with the intervention of the Senate, the circular was drafted to make it 500,000 cash per week for individuals and 5 million Naira for corporate body. One will assume that based on data available to the CBN of the depositors in every bank, at least 60% of the required threshold of the withdrawal should have been made available to all the banks. But that was not to be. I made inquiry frantically from banks in Osogbo, and they told me, and I firmly believe, that deliberately the CBN is not giving out the new note to the bank. And this has even put people who work in the bank in jeopardy, because the impression being given by the CBN that there are enough new notes in the banks is creating a situation whereby Nigerians are believing that it is the people who are in the banks that are not giving out the money. But that is not the truth based on my finding. So I would say that the question of order of court is one thing. The question whether there is the willingness and the atmosphere that would let the order of Supreme Court to be implemented and implementable is another thing, as it were. So there's still no succor for Nigerian people despite the order of the Supreme Court.
Why, Senator Bashiru, do you think, and here I'm asking for your personal opinion, you're a politician, a high-ranking Nigerian, you usually have your ear to the ground. Apart from that, the way you interpret these matters will probably be different from what one hears in the beer parlors and tombo bars. So my question is, why do you think all of this is happening now? You recall that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on a campaign a rally recently, had actually said that all of this was intended to frustrate, agitate the Nigerian public, I'm paraphrasing him now, and possibly goad them into action that could lead to a crisis, the end of which would be an interim kind of government arrangement. Asiwaju didn't provide any details. He just made the statement. So the question to you is, what's your understanding of why this is happening? The president is from your party, the candidate is from your party, yet your candidate is reading that the powers that be in a government that is run by his own party is trying to trick them into misbehaving so that actions could be taken which would not be in his favor.
Yes, Yori, I'm not speaking for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and I'm not taking his brief. Of course, he's my leader, my mentor, and my benefactor. But I speak personally. I think I feel sad that Nigerians will be put through the pains that we're going through now. Presently, I think it's rather very meaningless and rather callous for anybody put in the position of responsibility to implement a program of government in a way that inflicts untold hardship on majority of the Nigerian people. No matter what the motive could be for such, I think it's rather callous and reprimandable. And I will also say, with respect to our president, President Muhammadu Buhari, that I don't think we are alive as a government, and I'm not insulating myself to our responsibility to the oath that we have sworn to under the Nigerian Constitution. Section 14 of the Constitution expressly states that security and welfare of the people should be the paramount purpose of governance. What we are witnessing today is capable of jeopardizing security of the people, and certainly is already affecting negatively the welfare of our people. Many of our daily workers are finding it hard to survive. Many of our traders are finding it hard to trade. And many of our school goers are also having challenges in being able to be alive to responsibility. Even I, as a senator of Federal Republic of Nigeria, I cannot boast of having 25,000 naira cash to be able to give. And of course, you have a lot of dependents. You have a lot of people that look toward you for support. And the unfortunate thing is also that the financial technology industry of Nigeria is still not very savvy to be able to take the kind of demands that is being put on it. Now on the conspiracy theory, I think as a lawyer, you make inferential deduction from what has happened. The question that has stayed in my mind is this: why wait till a month before election before you implement a redesign policy of government? why can't the distribution of money wait until March 12th, when the election would have been, over? Or why not do it mid-2022? Why the timing? So the timing itself creates an inference of possible conspiracy. Secondly, the haphazard and very incompetent manner by which the implementation is also being done also give inference to a deliberate attempt to create situation of anarchy, situation of helplessness, situation of hopelessness, and of course, situation of frustration for a majority of Nigerians. Many productive hours are being wasted by Nigerians on queue on ATM that will never dispense. Or when they dispense 2,000 naira and they take 3,500 naira from those people who have taken that money. It is unfair for anybody. If it is as a sort of a political constitution, it's certainly unfair. And if I use the word satanica to seek to inflict maximum pain on people on that account, I'm not oblivious of the fact that there are elements within the present government. I'm not talking of the president. There are also elements within our political party that never wanted Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu to emerge as a candidate of the party. But one would have thought that when the battle has been fought and won at the primary, then all hands should be on deck to ensure a successful sale for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu presidency. But at last, you are seeing a situation whereby there appear to be some hurdles being thrown in the way of a smooth sale of an Asiwaju presidency. But it's clear, and we are making this message in our campaign. Whether they make Naira available, whether they make fuel available, we are urging Nigerians to come out and vote for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. We believe that from his pedigree, from his experience, from his commitment to development, is a person that will be able to attend to and address myriads of challenges that our country is facing in the context of global economic challenges occasioned by COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing Ukrainian-Russian crisis.
Well, thank you very much, Senator Bashiru. You see, as you spoke about it there, in fact, you used the word deliberate and deliberately at different times because one is wondering what exactly is going on. Now, people are telling us, people who read up on the laws of the country, they're telling us that, well, you see, this is about the central bank governor. It is the central bank. There's an act and all of that. So, it is the central bank that is handling all of this. Now, you don't even need to be a lawyer to know that the president is still in charge. And this kind of an action could not happen without the approval of President Muhammadu Buhari. That is without prejudice to the fact that the central bank and all its laws and all its functions and all its jurisdiction, that is there. But there's no way the central bank is going to move in a way that will scatter the whole country, potentially, without getting Mr. President's approval. After all, the other day, as we say locally, the other day, SSS was desirous of arresting the central bank governor, but they couldn't do it because you need the approval of the president to arrest the central bank governor. And there was the central bank governor being seen on television at a meeting with the president. So it was clear that they were not able to get the approval of the president, and therefore that couldn't happen. So you're the lawyer, you're the former attorney general, and we are the, what do you call us? I forget, unlearned. We are the unlearned. So please help us a bit to understand this whole matter about how people, including your very good self this morning, you virtually sort of absolved Mr. President from this whole matter.
I did not, what I say is that I did not absolve Mr. President.
Okay.
I said I did not even absolve myself as a senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria because I swore, just like Mr. President, to uphold the Constitution. And I did say here that responsibility under the Constitution is security and welfare of the people, to the extent that the action of the CBN governor undermined Nigerian security. You have seen breakdown of law and order in Ibadan and Abeokuta.
Yes.
And also potential potentials of breakdown of law and order in other parts of the country. I've also read of the blockade of Benin Road, in Ondo State. So what I'm saying is that I've not absorbed Mr. President, and I've also not absorbed myself as a senator representing Nigerian people. We swore to uphold the Constitution. To that extent, the argument of creating a facade between Mr. President and the CBN governor will not hold water. The question anybody will ask is that, as a president, will you sit aloof seeing Nigerian people becoming beggars when they have a deposit in a bank? Do you sit aloof talking about a law when Nigerian people spend almost all their productive hours queuing under scorching sun to be able to even get paltry amount of 2,000 naira, for which they would part away with 3,500 naira? At the debate on the cashless policy of the CBN, I remember when I raised the issue that the threshold set by the CBN will send millions of our POS operators out of business. That has become a reality now. I remember that the Deputy President of the Senate, who presided over that day, was referring to law. And I said, and the tape is there, is also in the answer, that law is made for man and not man made for law. You cannot, on the altar of law, inflict hardship on the people of the country. In any event, all over the world, there is doctrine of necessity that would bring down implementation of any legal or policy decision that will inflict hardship. So in this regard, I've also caused to issue a statement that the proposition that the president wants to wait for 7 days before he will take a position on it is rather preposterous. I was joking with somebody. Does he want to go to the mountain for 7 days to possibly get a spiritual solution to what is rather a practical solution? If CBN had in custody, and I believe they must still have the old notes, if they are not pushing out the new notes, let them push out the old notes. This is not the first country where there will be a redesigning policy, or what they call the monetization policy. In Saudi Arabia, they were spending their riyadh, old one and the new one, for years. In United Kingdom, the polymer of the 5, 10, and 20 pound bill was spent together with the old bill for a long period of time. The same thing with the rest of America. You don't wake up and say within a period of 45 days, you want to take off billions of naira from circulation without replacing it with even a quantum of even up to 10% of what you have taken out of circulation. So I suspected that Mr. President should have summoned the CBN and his management to come and let them know what is even the quantum of money they are put in circulation. What are the logistics they are put in place to be able to ensure that Nigerians are not put through this untold hardship, particularly at this crucial moment of transition. And of course, you cannot blame anybody thinking that possibly these are being put in place as booby trap to ensure that the 2023 general election will not be successful. Exactly. I begin to get the feeling that there are elements that doesn't want us to transit democratically in 2023.
Indeed. And in fact, those questions that you were are sort of imagining the president might want to ask after calling a meeting of the relevant officials, including the central bank governor, I can just sit here and stick my neck out and say that Mr. President has the answers to those questions at his fingertips. Because I still want to go back to my, if you want to call it, unlearned attitude of, you can't move forward like this as central bank governor without Mr. President giving a tacit nod of approval. But let's leave that. You've spoken on that. One of the other issues.
No. Let me address the issue of approval. Okay. You see, I've been in government. I've been in government before at the executive level. Yes, you could give approval for the designing of the notes, but the nitty-gritty of implementation should be carried out by a competent management. I have doubts about the competence of the management of the CBN, and I say it with all sense of responsibility. I'm not a banker, but of course, I've handled government affairs before. I've handled what I call logistic nightmare before. Getting money out of circulation and replacing it with another set of notes should not be a nightmare. If you are taking 10 billion out of circulation, even if you place in 5 billion and you distribute it evenly among the banks, I don't think we'll run into this. Then you don't seek to put two things together. At the same time that you are talking of cashless policy, which had actually failed, because this cashless policy had been in operation for almost about 6 or 7 years, left unimplemented. You now want to do a double barrel approach without putting necessary money. So yes, the president approved the designing of the notes. Of course, the CBN, by its act, can come up with policy on cashless and threshold or withdrawal. But then the implementation must be done in such a way that will not inflict the present hardship on the Nigerian people. In fact, the international community will be looking at us as if we're a banana republic, a country that cannot engage its citizens in being able to meet their daily demands of even survival.
Indeed, and as you said, you're not holding brief for the president or anybody else, but you're just saying this the way you see it. Among the reasons we were given to understand why this exercise was necessary is that there are a number of things that have to be addressed. I think they mentioned security, that there's a security aspect to it. Maybe all these criminals and all of that, it was supposed to have a salutary effect. Then there's the other matter, unspoken. But I think, personally now, that it is considered that Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a man of means. And such is the extent of such means that it possibly could aid him. Now, I don't know how these things work, but if it is felt that a man of such extensive means, as we are dealing with here, is in the race, then it looks like again, I fall back on the unlearned, uninformed aspect. It follows that such a man, if you can just, frustrate him a bit, prevent access to any such means, then, maybe the desires of some would have been achieved. Now, it's ludicrous, I know, but this is what one is hearing that is like, because when you don't have the truth, you have all sorts of speculation. Additionally, Senator, the security aspect, we have seen pictures on social media of terrorists flaunting the notes that Nigerians are at the banks for hours for. Say, look at your wahala doing yourself. Look at the notes here. So, Senator, go ahead and comment, please. And how you...
I will first say that that's why I mentioned, and with respect, using the word incompetence against people who are supposed to be professionals is not good. But I have had cause to, when this crisis began, to conduct study of where such kind of experience had been put in place before. One of such places, is India, when they came up with the demonetization of certain higher denominations, and the same set of arguments that have been canvassed by the handlers of the CBN were also canvassed then in India. One, they talk about security, they talk about counterfeiting of currency, they talk about illicit funding for money laundering, and of course, they talk about a large amount of money being put in, being outside the banking circulation. Those were the same set of arguments that was preferred in India to take high domination out of circulation in India. But the same India inflicted hardship just as the CBN of Nigeria is inflicting hardship on our people. At the end of the day, when an assessment was done years after, the same high denominations were introduced, even higher denomination was still introduced in India. Research also showed that illicit demonetization, also corruption was also not addressed, and of course, counterfeiting is as age-long as currency itself. It's something that you cannot wish away by just saying that you redesign or do everything like something like that. So an experience like this had occurred in India. One would have thought that the policymakers in Nigeria, in the CBN, should have studied what happened in other countries. Why did they fail? How did they fail? So that in coming up with this position, they will be able to also come to that. Then addressing the question of our leader, Asiwaju, being a man of means. He's a man of means not because in terms of naira and kobo or dollar and cents. He's a man of means because he has invested in so many people, including myself, that we are using our own personal resources to campaign for him. Even if I'm not on the ballot as a senator, I would definitely be under obligation to use my resources to campaign for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and ensure that he emerge. Not only because he has been a benefactor to some of us, because we also believe that he's somebody that has a track record of upliftment of the people, of coming up with programs that revolutionize infrastructure in Lagos State, revolutionize governance, and revolutionize public finance and management. So whether they take naira out of circulation, even if they ban outright spending of naira, that would not, affect the goodwill that a lot of Nigerians, including some of us, have in Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, leadership. So if it is because of Asiwaju that some people want to inflict hardship on Nigerians, we want to beg them not to inflict unnecessary hardship on Nigerian people, because Asiwaju, by the grace of Almighty God, is a person of destiny, is a man that has a date with Nigerian people on 25th of February 2023, and definitely by the grace of God, by the dint of his commitment to uplifting so many other people, he will carry the day on that day.
Okay, Senator Bashiru, I'm going to take a break now. Please stay with us. We'll be right back, and when we come back, we'll include your calls as well. Stay with us, please.